Good morning. Today we are on part 6 of 7 of my Red collection for my Sunday Shelfie tour. If you've missed the first few videos, I'll link the playlist down below. But yeah, I'm taking you on a grand tour of my entire collection and talking about the books in depth on the way. So far, it's been my favorite thing I've done on this channel. And I'm especially excited today because I have a ton of all-time favorites on this shelf you're going to see, so can't wait. Let's look at some books. So the first thing I have here is my Devon Monk collection. I really like this author's writing style. This particular story is like a Wild West steampunk. I thought it was a lot of fun. I intend to continue the series, I just haven't made time for it. And then we've got Magic to the Bone, the first one in her Allie Beckstrom series, which per Project Urban Fantasy, I'm hoping to get back to sooner than later. And then an arc of the Night Circus that I was lucky enough to get while working as a bookseller. I brought it home, and early one Saturday morning I decided to go through my book collection and see if I wanted to unhaul anything. And I started reading the first couple of pages of this one just to see if it was something I'd be interested in picking up later. And I was so absorbed by it that I picked it up and got back in bed, curled up, and spent the whole day reading it. I even think I canceled a couple of plans to do that. Something about it was very addicting and absorbing, and I love the atmosphere in it. It's one of the most beautiful books I've ever read. So I'm really happy I have that. In the beginnings of my Andre Norton collection. This series a lot of people really like. I enjoyed a lot of things about it, but the direction it went at the end, I really just didn't like, so I've had no interest in picking up the next one. But, as with everything, I might get back to that eventually. And then we have these hardcovers by Royale. As I've mentioned, my all-time favorite artist. And I picked these hardcovers up on my recent used bookstore trek. The series is a cycle of Oak, Yew, Ash, and Throne. And honestly, I'm not even sure if I've read this fifth book. They were so dry and boring that I think I was kind of phoning it in at the end. And I definitely wouldn't have picked it up in hardcover on the story's merit alone. That's just because I really like the artwork. And actually, looking over here, the spines aren't cracked on this one, so yeah, I definitely haven't read the fifth book yet. Whoops. Moving over, my Tamarra collection by Naomi Novik. I picked up these hardcovers on my most recent used bookstore trek as well. And this one, it's a compilation of the first three, and I have had it at least 10 years, just taking up space on my shelves. At one point, I thought I might even donate it. Because for the longest time, I would have told you I'm not a fan of alternate history tellings. But the more I've gotten into military fantasy, like Promise of Blood, Way of Kings, so many amazing military fantasy, I thought, well, maybe I could handle coming into the real world for a little bit as long as there's dragons, especially since I loved Marie Brennan's Lady Trent series. This one is influenced by history, but it does not have a very historical fiction focus. The star of the show is definitely the dragon. The first book is on a pedestal as one of my favorite things I've ever read. The trilogy, the first initial trilogy, is awesome. And then from there it kind of loses some steam. It turns into a bit of a fluff read. But there's a very specific craving I have for this dragon Tamarra, and it was so much fun reading about him. So I really can't believe I let it go that long without picking up. Okay, here's my T.A. Pratt Marla Mason series collection, and it's one of my all-time favorite urban fantasies. And I supported a Kickstarter at some point and got this signed edition, which is really cool. It's a really weird series, and that's why I like it. We've got the first Esther Diamond novel by Laura Resnick, Disappearing Nightly. That one was just okay, like a 3-star basic read. Per my Project Urban Fantasy, I'll probably get back to it eventually, but I'm not in any kind of hurry. my Dragon Prince collection. I read these in high school. I remember them being kind of dry. On that same used bookstore trek, I picked this one up, which I have no idea why I bought this. I was debating on even donating the series, and if I were going to get the hardcover, it would be for the dragons. And as you see here, there's not very many dragons on this cover. It's kind of ugly. So why I bought that, I don't know. I was weak. But this one, I love this cover. This is obviously a Michael Whelan, and I tried to draw this one so many times in high school to very low success. And every time I look at it now, the dragon reminds me of the cockroach alien at the end of Men in Black. I love that I have that one. I'm going to maybe try to draw it again now that I'm older and more experienced in art. See if I can finally do it. I actually did have quite a bit of success drawing this one. At some point, maybe I'll do like a dragon art video. Here are my Tiger and Dell compilations by Jennifer Roberson. This is such a fun series. If you like sword fighting and, just a lot of cute little banter back and forth between characters, this is a great series. I remember reading that Jennifer Roberson wrote the first book in a day. Just kind of word vomited it and then went back and polished it. And you can definitely tell it's not a very complex story, but I tell you what, it's a lot of fun. Yeah, I really love that one, and I quite like the covers they did for the compilations as opposed to the old, really ugly ones. Well, I don't know. That guy's face in that one looks a little funny. But the other ones are quite bad, so I'll take it. And I guess because things weren't wrapped up in a pretty package with the end of the first original 6 books, much later, like 10 years later, they came out with this one. And it did end the story a little more satisfyingly. So if you pick up the series now, you won't have to wait as long for the actual conclusion. And then my favorite collector's edition on the shelves is this beautiful copy of Name of the Wind. It's got red spine, and I have a lot of issues with the attitude of this author right now. I'm very over it, but this first book is one of my all-time favorites. I love it so much, and to have this absolutely gorgeous version on my shelves makes me so happy. And I won a giveaway for a signed copy of this first edition hardcover. Don't believe me? Give me a minute. Boop. Yeah, I think that's pretty rad also. But look how sad it looks. Just the first 2 books and then not the third one. I know, the entire book community is with me on that. We're getting to my favorites here. I've got Blood Song, the Raven Shadow series, and yeah, one of my all-time favorite books. I love that I have these in beautiful hardcovers. I like the second one as much as the first, even though it went a bit of a different direction. But the last, 20% of this book I had a hard time reading. It was kind of boring in a weird way. But eventually I would like to continue the series. I didn't remember how massive these were. My all-time favorite series of anything I've ever read, I have determined, is the Draconius Memoria by Anthony Ryan. These have adventure, they have dragons, they have great characters, this amazing sense of exploration and discovery. Some of the parts reminded me a bit of Indiana Jones kind of adventure. And the magic system in here is so cool. It's like Sanderson's Allomancy in Mistborn, but with dragon blood instead of metals. So cool. The author sent me signed book plates for these, but I haven't had a chance to put them inside yet. But yeah, I've got signed book plates for this series, and it's my all-time favorite. There is my shrine to Anthony Ryan. And now begins the beginning of my R.A. Salvatore collection. I've got these science fiction book club editions, and these are the ones that have been read quite heavily. I've physically read this one a couple of times, and every time I recommend a book to a friend, It seems like I've recommended this one a lot, so many different people have been reading this physical copy, and I don't usually lend out books, but I had other versions of this one, so I was okay letting people read it. The first 3 books in this I've read 3 times, and each time I pick a different book as my favorite. It seems like I've been picking up on different nuances of storytelling each time, and yeah, prefer a different book. Icewind Dale. Got the Legacy of the Drow, which is really cool. Paths of Darkness, and then the individual standalones of each novel, beginning with Homeland. And if you followed my book hauls and used bookstore treks over the last several months, you know that I was desperately searching for these. Could not find them in the stores, so ended up having to order them online, and I am so glad I found them. Some of them were pretty pricey, some of them were pretty hard to find, but eventually I did end up with the whole caboodle. I'll get to that in a second. Retail on this one is $25.95. That would have been a lot cheaper to just buy them with an employee discount back when they came out, but I thought, no, I really don't want to spend the money right now. I'm sure they'll always be available to order from Barnes & Noble. So yeah, nope, I'm just going to make the conscious decision to be conservative now. And 20 years later, I'm kicking myself for that attitude, because it was a pain in the ass to order all of these, and I had to send a whole bunch back because they came in much poorer condition than they were supposed to. And a few of them are still not in as amazing condition as I would have liked. It's more in, not on the spines, but just, yeah. But that's okay. They're beautiful. This one was like $60. Oh my gosh. Okay, let's just take it in for a minute. Very hard earned. And while I was at it, I decided to pick up these original hardcovers, not the special editions. These have a lot of memories. The friend that got me hooked on this series, I remember in high school he was reading this particular novel, and he's like, well, I love it so much, I'm only allowing myself to read a chapter a day. And so he did. He very slowly made his way through because he was sad at the prospect of not having anything to read from this author, and I can relate. And I finally replaced my science fiction book club editions of those. We've got the newer ones, and I am just now continuing on with the Neverwinter stuff. This is where I've read up to, and I've got like 10 books more to go. And then Salvatore's Child of a Mad God. One of the main reasons I wanted to get back to Drizzt is because I read this book and thought it was so fantastic that I wondered if this amazing writing was also making the Drizzt series even better than it had been, because he's very definitely come a long way since he started writing back in the 80s. Case in point, The Demon Awakens, Demon Spirit. I read these two, and I almost DNF'd Demon Spirit. I was not enjoying it at all. For when it was written, it's a pretty decent series, but just, I don't know, a little bit too long-winded and repetitive for me. So, I don't know. I might go back to that eventually just because I really like the author. And actually, this book is in the same world as that one, and I think the third one in this trilogy references a few aged characters from those classic books. But at least the first 2 of this one you can read as a standalone. It's in the Corona world. Maybe don't read it anytime soon. And that wraps up this week's tour. Thank you so much for joining me on this tour, and I hope to catch you next time. Bye.